Level 1, the survivor. The mammoth died 3 days ago and you are still the one who killed it. Not with the biggest spear. Not with the loudest shout. You were the one who watched it for 6 hours from the ridge. Silent, tracking the slight drag in its left rear leg, the way it listed toward water at midday. You told the others where to stand. Grok threw the killing blow because Grok is twice your size and everyone knows it. But the mammoth died where you said it would die. At the time you said it would die there. Nobody said thank you. That is not a thing the tribe says yet. You are 32 years old, which makes you old. Your name is something that doesn't translate into any modern language. A sound, a click, a breath. Call it what the fire calls everything, fuel. You are one of 23 people scratching survival out of a valley in what will eventually be called southern France, though the concept of France is 40,000 years away and means nothing here. What means something? The cold. The coming winter. The fact that Grok's brother, Dren, ate first again last night, and you ate the gristle that was left. There is no word in your language for unfair. There is a word for hungry. You have been hungry for most of your life. Not starving, you're too good at finding food for that, but the specific, grinding hunger of someone who produces more than they receive. You know where the roots are when snow covers everything. You know which mushrooms kill and which don't, a distinction that has saved 4 members of this tribe, including Grok's youngest, a girl with a crooked ear who follows you sometimes and brings you things she finds. You know how to read weather in cloud formations 2 days before the storm arrives. Grok knows how to hit things very hard. Grok leads the tribe. This has always felt wrong to you in a way you have no words to express. The feeling sits in your chest like a stone you swallowed. Leadership here means nothing more than the right to eat first, the right to the warmest sleeping spot, the right to be feared. Grok is not cruel. Exactly. He is simply large, and largeness here is authority. He has never wondered why the mammoth limps. He has never needed to. You have been wondering your whole life. That is what this is about. Level 2, the Watcher. Winter is coming in 7 days. You know this because the second flock of birds crossed the valley today, the ones with the dark wingtips, and they only move when the real cold is 2 hand widths behind them. You tell Dren. Dren tells Grok. Grok looks at the sky for 30 seconds and announces that winter is coming in 7 days. The tribe prepares. You spend 2 days alone, scouting the cave network 3 ridges east, the one with the south-facing opening and the natural chimney crack that draws smoke upward instead of choking the interior. You map it in your memory with obsessive precision of someone who understands that information is survival, 4 chambers, fresh water seeping through the back wall from an underground source. Evidence of bear, but old, at least 2 seasons. The entrance is narrow enough that one person with a long spear can hold it against almost anything. You bring this back. You describe it in the specific way you describe things, with your hands and your sounds, and the careful architecture of your attention. The tribe's response is the same response it always gives to your intelligence. Polite indifference, filtered through Grok. Grok decides they will stay in the current cave. The current cave has a north-facing opening, poor smoke ventilation, and a floor that floods when snowmelt comes. 3 winters ago, the old man whose name no one says anymore got sick in that cave and died by the time the ice broke. You remember this. You remember everything. You go back to your place near the fire's outer edge and eat your portion of the mammoth, which is the piece nobody else wanted. But here is what shifts. Here is the thing that changes the entire direction of your life. On your way back from the eastern caves, you find the flint. Not ordinary flint. A seam of it, running through a limestone shelf for 15 paces. More raw flint than you have ever seen in one place. Pure, with almost no inclusions. The kind of flint that, if you know what you're doing, produces an edge sharper than anything the tribe currently uses by a significant margin. You know what you're doing. You spend the next 4 days in secret, returning to the seam alone, working the stone with a technique you developed yourself over years of quiet experimentation, soft hammer percussion with an antler billet, pressure flaking with a pointed bone tool. The results are extraordinary. A hand axe that would cut through the mammoth hide you've been struggling with for years. 2 spear points that seat perfectly in a split shaft. A scraping tool so efficient it halves the time required to process a hide. You bring none of it back yet. You think about it instead. And in the thinking, something calcifies. Something that was always there, the stone in your chest, becomes a plan. Level 3, The craftsman. You begin selectively. A better spear point for the crooked ear girl because she is small and the hunting is getting harder, and you genuinely want her to survive. A cutting tool for the old woman, Essa, who is going blind and can no longer process hides efficiently, and whose status in the tribe is therefore declining toward dangerous. These gifts are casual. You don't announce them. You hand them over and walk away. Essa and the girl start eating slightly better. Their hides are cleaner. Their work is faster. People notice. You do not explain where the tools come from. When asked, you gesture vaguely toward the ridge. Humans are bad at following up on vague gestures. They have too much else to survive. The mystery does more work than an explanation would. Over the next 3 weeks, you produce tools for 8 members of the tribe. Not Grok, not Dren, not the 3 men in Grok's immediate orbit, everyone else. You calibrate each tool to the person's specific task and hand size and weakness. The woman who has trouble with her right shoulder gets a lighter, longer-handled scraper. The young man who is fast but not strong gets 2 throwing spears weighted for distance rather than penetration. These are not accidents. You have watched these people for 32 years. The tribe's survival rate improves measurably. A deer is taken that would have escaped under the old tools. A hide is processed in half the time, which means more time for other things. The old woman's status recovers slightly because her output increases. And then winter comes. The cave floods on the 22nd day, as you knew it would. Not catastrophically, no one dies, but the sleeping area becomes cold and damp, and 3 children develop the lung sickness that killed 2 children last winter. Grok moves the tribe to the southern alcove as a temporary measure, which requires crossing exposed ground twice a day for water, which is costly and cold this severe. You say nothing. You wait. On the 30th day of winter, during a brief warming that produces a half day of weak sun, you gather 6 of the people who use your tools and walk them to the eastern caves. You don't announce it as a demonstration. You frame it as a scouting trip. But when you show them the south-facing entrance, the natural chimney, the underground water source, the roomy second chamber where children could sleep dry and warm, the 6 people are quiet in the way that precedes decision. They bring it back to the tribe. Grok is resistant. Grok is always resistant to things he didn't think of first. But it is midwinter, and the children are sick, and 4 people besides yourself now understand that the new cave is better. Grok feels the coalition before he sees it. The tribe moves to the eastern caves on the 33rd day of winter. Nobody names you the leader. That is not what is happening yet. What is happening is something quieter and more durable. People begin coming to you with problems first, before they go to Grok. Not all problems, not yet, but the right problems, the ones where survival is at stake. Level 4, the advisor. You understand something that Grok will never understand because Grok does not need to understand it. Power is not taken. Power is redistributed, gradually, through the accumulation of small obligations. You now hold obligations from 11 of the tribe's 23 members. The obligations are not explicit. They are not agreements. They are something more primitive and therefore more binding. The specific memory of having been saved. Spring comes. The hunting improves. You organize the first planned drive, funneling Jandir into a ravine using people stationed at intervals you calculate based on the terrain and wind direction. The kill is 4 deer in a single afternoon. The tribe has not eaten this well in memory. Grok leads the drive because Grok is at the front with the spear, which is where Grok belongs. But the drive works because of the intervals you calculated, the positions you assigned, the wind reading that put the right people upwind. Grok eats first. This is still true. But you eat second now, without asking, because Essa hands you your portion before anyone else's and no one objects. This is the first moment you understand it might actually happen. Dren notices. Dren is not as large as Grok, and not as capable as you, which puts him in the dangerous middle position of a man whose status depends entirely on proximity to power. He watches you the way a small predator watches a changing landscape. Not with hostility yet, with assessment. You bring Dren into the next project deliberately. The storage cache, a sealed pit near the cave entrance, lined with stones to resist moisture, where surplus meat can be preserved through temperature differential in the earth. The concept is not complex, but the execution requires 2 people who both understand why each step matters. You teach Dren the technique. You credit him publicly when the cache works. Dren's assessment of you shifts from threat to asset. This is the outcome you needed. There is a woman named Mira, who is the best tracker in the tribe, and who Grok has largely ignored because trackers are valued less than fighters in Grok's hierarchy of importance. This is a strategic error you have watched Grok make for years. You start going out with Mira. Not romantically, this is not that kind of story, but professionally, in the sense that you learn her knowledge and she learns yours, and the combination of deep tracking ability and your knowledge of terrain and weather produces a hunting record that begins to distinguish itself clearly from what the tribe achieves without you. You are building something with no word in your language. The closest approximation would be the conditions under which a different arrangement becomes not just possible but necessary. Level 5, the problem. It happens in midsummer. A younger man, broad and newly confident, challenges Grok in the way that challenges always happen here. Directly, physically, over the right to eat first. The younger man's name is something like Brack Brack. He has been emboldened by the general improvement in the tribe's condition, which has given everyone slightly more energy and therefore slightly more appetite for status. Grok defeats Brack in approximately 45 seconds. It is not even close. Grok is still what Grok is, but something happens after. Brack is on the ground, not seriously hurt, and Grok stands over him in the old posture of dominance, the one that says, "Stay down, remember this, don't try again." And for the first time in your memory, you watch 3 people look away from Grok and look at you instead, not asking you to intervene, not expecting anything, just checking. Grok sees it. This is the moment you realize you have miscalculated on timing. You built the network too visibly. The obligations, the tools, the cash, the hunting record. They have produced something recognizable to anyone paying attention. And Grok, whatever his limitations, has survived 38 winters by paying attention to threats. He does not confront you directly. Grok is not stupid. And direct confrontation with you is risky in ways it wasn't before, because you now have 11 people who owe you something, and Grok has. At this point, perhaps 6 whose loyalty is unambiguous. The math is uncomfortable for him. What he does instead is stop you from going on the next hunt. No explanation. No stated reason. He assigns the hunting party in the morning, and your name is not in it. You watch the party leave with Mira and the young spear thrower, and 3 others. You stay in camp and help Essa with hides. This is a message. You understand it perfectly. The question you spend the rest of the day with is whether you are willing to receive that message or send one back. Level 6. The move. The hunting party returns with nothing. This is not unusual, but it is information. Without Mira's tracking synthesis with your terrain knowledge, the party covered ground poorly, moved into wind twice, and spooked 2 separate deer herds. You know this because Mira tells you that evening in the specific way she communicates through gesture and expression, with a question underneath it. She is asking where you were. She is actually asking whether this is going to keep happening. You tell her no. Not in words. With something more legible, you show her the new spear you've been building for 2 weeks, balanced differently from anything the tribe currently uses, heavier at the shoulder, with a secondary groove that accepts a thrown thong for additional rotation. In a week of practice, it will throw 30% farther than the current standard. You hand it to her. This is your answer to Grok's message. The next day you approach Dren. You don't speak to him about Grok. You don't make any case against Grok or frame anything as conflict. Instead, you describe the spring hunting patterns you've been tracking, the migration corridor 2 days east that the tribe has never used, the potential for a large-scale drive that would require full tribal coordination to execute. You describe it with the enthusiasm of someone sharing a discovery, not a plan. Dren responds with the enthusiasm of someone who understands that more food means more everything. You talk through the logistics until Dren has essentially designed the hunt in his own mind, with your data as the raw material. Then you say, "This is the kind of hunt that works when everyone knows their role from the beginning, when the plan is clear to everyone before we leave." Dren nods. You say, "The kind of plan that someone would need to explain to the whole tribe so that everyone understands it." Dren nods again. You say, "You should be the one to explain it to Grok. This is not generosity. This is surgery." Dren brings the plan to Grok. Grok, who is hungry for a win after the failed hunt, and for the authority that a successful large hunt would restore, receives it. The hunt is announced. The roles are assigned. Grok is at the front, as always, as he should be. This is not about replacing Grok's strength, which is real and genuinely valuable. You design the corridor positions, the relay signals, the fallback if the herd turns. But the plan, in the telling, belongs to Dren, and Dren, in the execution, defers publicly to your positioning calls. The hunt takes 3 days and returns with 6 deer and a boar. The tribe eats for 2 weeks from that harvest. There is no vote. There is no formal moment. But when the next decision needs to be made, where to move for the autumn, which water source to trust after the strange rain, people bring their questions to the configuration of you, Dren and Mira, before they go to Grok. And Grok, who is not stupid, who has survived 38 winters by reading the landscape accurately, receives this information. Level 7. The confrontation. He comes to you at night. Not violently. This is important. And it tells you something about who Grok actually is beneath the size and the dominance. He sits near your part of the fire. He is quiet for a long time. What he says, in the sounds and gestures of your shared language, is something like, "I see what you are doing." You say nothing. He says, "Why?" This is a more sophisticated question than you expected from him, and it lands in your chest near the stone that has always been there. Why? Because you are hungry and have always been hungry, and the hunger is not only for food. Because you knew where the mammoth would fall, and you went to sleep cold while Dren ate the good parts. Because the children got sick in a cave that didn't have to flood. Because you could see the eastern cave from the ridge, and Grok looked at the sky for 30 seconds and made the wrong choice. You don't say any of this. You don't have the words for most of it. What you say is, the tribe lives better now. Grok is quiet again for a long time. He is not a thinker in the way you are a thinker, but he is not empty either. He has kept 23 people alive through 4 brutal winters, which is not nothing. He has done it with what he had. He says, "If I fight you, what happens?" You tell him the truth. If he fights you, he probably wins, because he is still Grok. And then Myra leaves, and Dren's loyalty changes. And the next hunt fails. And the children go into winter without the cache full. You are not threatening him. You are reading the terrain. Grok sits with the fire until it dies low. Then he gets up and goes to sleep. In the morning, nothing is announced. No transition, no ceremony. But Grok eats beside you now, not across from you. When a question comes to him, he looks at you briefly before answering. Not always. Not submissively. But in the way a man looks at a map before he speaks. This is the arrangement. It has no name. It will function for 11 years. Level 8, the limit. The crooked ear girl's name, you have decided, is something that means small hawk. She is 13 now, and she is the person in the tribe you are closest to. Which is not very close, because closeness has never been easy for you. Your attention was always distributed across the whole system. The weather, the food supply, the social dynamics, the tools, and the individual fell through the analysis. She knows this about you. She brings you things she finds anyway, an unusual stone, a feather, once a small and perfect bird skull. She doesn't explain why. You don't explain why you accept them. She has started learning the tool work. Not from you directly. You are not a good teacher of individuals, only of systems. But by watching, which is how you learned everything yourself. Her hands are small and precise. The flint work is already better than 3 of the adult hunters. You have been watching this develop with something you don't have a word for. A warmth in the chest that is different from the stone that has always been there. In the 33rd winter, she turns 15 and she comes to you with a question. She wants to lead a hunt. Not as a joke. Not as a child's request. She has been tracking the deer corridor 2 ridges east for 2 full seasons, refining your original data, finding variations in the migration timing you didn't know about. She presents this to you in the careful gestural language of someone who has thought through the objection before making the ask. She is making the same kind of case you made to Dren 11 years ago. She learned it from watching you. Your hands are shaking slightly as she talks. You are not certain whether from cold or from something else. You tell her yes. Level 9, the crack. She leads the hunt in the 4th week of winter. 7 people, your best interval system. The corridor she identified. You stay at the cave because your knee has been bad since the previous spring and the terrain is steep, and you made a decision, quiet and difficult, that the hunt does not need you physically present in order to work. This is the first time you have fully trusted the system without being inside it. The party is gone for 2 days. On the 2nd evening, Dren comes back first, ahead of the others, and when you see his face, you understand immediately. Not the words, the face. She fell from the return. Ice on the ridge descent, the steep section, bad light in late afternoon. The injury is to her head. She is alive when they bring her in, but she is not present in the way she was present before. The light behind her eyes has moved somewhere interior and distant, somewhere the rest of you cannot reach. You do everything correctly. You stay awake. You keep her warm. You get water into her when she will accept it. You bring Essa's daughter, who has the best instinct in the tribe for sickness. And together you do everything that can be done. She dies on the third day. You sit with her until the others come. Essa's daughter puts a hand on your shoulder. Dren stands nearby in the specific posture of a man who wants to help and doesn't know how. You look at Dren for a moment, and something passes between you that neither of you will ever name. The understanding that she was supposed to be what came after both of you, that you were building toward her without knowing it, and now the thing you were building toward is gone. You go to the cave entrance. The wind is from the northwest. 2 or 3 more weeks of hard cold. You sit there until full dark, and in the sitting, something you built over 30 years, the careful distance, the distributed attention, the refusal to let any single person become the thing the whole structure rests on, reveals itself as a strategy that works for survival and fails, completely at this specific moment, in this specific way. You did not stay close to her, because closeness is a vulnerability. The system taught you that. The system was wrong. You are still sitting at the entrance when the young man comes. His name is something like Brath. He is large and newly adult, and he has been watching the tribe's invisible architecture for 2 seasons, with the focused attention of someone who intends to challenge it. He has chosen this moment deliberately. He is not cruel. He is simply reading the terrain, exact as you taught the tribe to read terrain. And the terrain right now shows a man alone at the cave entrance in the dark, visibly diminished. The arrangement's center temporarily exposed. He sits near you. He makes his case. Not for himself specifically, he is smarter than that. He makes the case for the old way, loudly, to the tribe over the following 3 days, with the implicit promise that what is visible and physical and present is more trustworthy than what is invisible and structural and distributed. Some people respond. Not the ones who remember the flooding cave, but the young ones who grew up inside the arrangement and therefore cannot see it, who experience its benefits as simply the way things are. You say nothing for 3 days. Dren handles the first 2 days of it, as you knew Dren would. Dren likes order and the order benefits him, so Dren has practical reasons to push back. He does it competently. He has become genuinely capable in ways he wasn't 11 years ago, and watching him work the social dynamics is a strange experience, like watching your own thinking move through another person's body. On the 3rd day, Brath makes his case directly to you. He is not hostile. He sits near your part of the fire and says something that amounts to, the tribe should be led by someone the tribe can see. You look at him for a long time. You are thinking about her, about the bird skull she brought you, about the hunt she designed and the tracking data she refined, and the light that went somewhere interior and distant on the 3rd day, about the distance between what you are good at and what you were not good enough at. You tell Brath, show me what you know, not a challenge, a genuine question, and Brath, who expected resistance, is thrown by the openness of it. He talks for a long time. He knows more than you expected. He has been paying attention. Some of what he knows he learned, without knowing it, from watching systems you built. The interval spacing, the wind reading, the cache logic. When he finishes, you tell him, you should be the one who leads the next hunt. Not Dren, not the arrangement. Brath. Dren looks at you sharply. This is not what Dren expected, and it is not what Dren wants. You meet his eyes and hold them until he understands that you are not losing something. You are making something. Brath leads the hunt. You help him design it, quietly, in the 2 days before departure. Not as a controller. As the person who knows where the deer are. Brath goes out with 7 people and the interval system and comes back with 3 deer, which is not as good as your best and better than most. He eats first when he returns. You hand him the portion yourself. The challenge dissolves not because you crushed it, but because you absorbed it. You gave it somewhere to go. This is not generosity. It is the same kind of surgery you performed on Dren 11 years ago, and you know it, and the knowledge sits differently this time, because she is not here to grow into what you were growing her toward, and you had to find the next version of the plan without her in it. The stone in your chest is heavier than it has ever been. That is the honest accounting. Level 10. the inheritor. You are 51 years old. By the standards of your world, this is not possible, and yet here you are. The tribe is 31 people now. It was 23 when you began. Brath leads the hunts. He is not you. He is louder, more present, more visible, which is exactly what the tribe needs from the person at the front. He comes to you before the difficult decisions with the specific questions you taught him to ask. Where, when, wind, terrain. He takes the answers and makes them his own in the telling, which is correct, which is how it should move. Dren is old now, older than you in the ways that matter. He sits near the fire most days and tells the children things. Some of what he tells them is true. Some of it has drifted from the original. This is also correct. This is how knowledge travels in a world with no writing. It travels through people, and it changes in the traveling, and what survives is what was strong enough to survive the changing. Grok died 3 winters ago. He was 60, which was impossible, and he knew it was impossible, and he seemed quietly satisfied by the impossibility of it. You sat with him at the end. He looked at you and made a sound that might have been amusement. You are still not certain. The eastern cave, the storage cache, the interval drives, the tool techniques. You could name 11 things you introduced that are now simply how the tribe does things, invisibly, without attribution, without anyone connecting the practice to the person who invented it. She would have added to that list. You know exactly what she would have added. The migration timing refinements, the tracking synthesis she was developing, the things she saw in the deer corridor that you didn't see. That knowledge died with her. You have thought about this every day since the 3rd day of that winter. This is the part that doesn't resolve. You sit at the cave entrance most mornings now, in the spot where the sun hits earliest. The people you sit among are mostly people who grew up inside the arrangement, who experience its benefits as simply the way things are. They don't know your name will not survive them. They don't need to. Brath's youngest daughter is 7. She has been watching you. Not in the way children usually watch, distracted, intermittent, easily pulled away. She watches with the specific sustained attention of someone cataloging. Last week she brought you a stone. Unusual, striated, with a natural edge that suggests fracture lines. She handed it to you without explanation and walked away. You held it for a long time. You have started showing her things. Nothing formal. The way you would hold a piece of flint and turn it in the light before striking. She watches. That, where you look when you look at the sky before weather, she watches that. You do not teach. You simply do not hide. This is different from what you did with her. You know that. You will not make her into what you were building before, because that project belongs to the person who is gone, and you will not put it on someone else to carry. What you are doing now is smaller and more honest, leaving things visible that you previously kept interior, letting the distance close slightly in the time you have left, in the specific and limited way that is still available to you. The Vala fills with light every morning. The ridgelines are the same. The river catches the early light the same way it did 50 years ago, which is to say, perfectly, indifferently, without any knowledge of what happened on its banks. You watch it the way you have always watched things, with the full attention of someone who understands that what you see is what you will work with, and what you don't see is what will eventually find you. The birds with the dark wingtips crossed yesterday. 2 weeks until the hard cold. You will tell Brath when he wakes.